The winner is Julie Christie.
I don't think I can say anything, except to thank everyone concerned, and especially my darling John Schlesinger, for this wonderful honor. Thank you.
Julie Christie, the emblem of 1960s cinema, suddenly reappeared on July 23, 2024, outside a laundromat in East London. At 84, she emerged with silver hair, a bare face without makeup, a pale shirt, and a simple red scarf. No bodyguards, no red carpet, no camera flash, just an ordinary moment. Yet it instantly stunned the world, because that unassuming woman was once the reason Time declared 1965 the year of Julie Christie. She once won an Oscar with Darling, became the immortal Lara in Doctor Zhivago, wore shimmering trousers she sewed herself to challenge Hollywood right on the Oscar stage. She once made Warren Beatty want to marry her, once refused to be a Bond girl. A true legend. But few know that behind the dazzling roles and fashion brilliance, Julie Christie always carried a quiet sorrow, a fractured childhood, a sense of abandonment, a family history marked by truths colonial society deemed shameful, all etched deeply into her heart. Those wounds made her avoid marriage, remain childless, and repeatedly walk away from Hollywood even at the height of her career. Now, at 84, Julie Christie chooses seclusion in the English countryside. Yet behind that silence lies a secret, a legend who once enchanted an era but carried within her a private pain, visible only in those sad, inimitable eyes. Her tragedy was not decline or fading away, but the silence that left the world both in awe and in unending ache. Before delving into this conflicted and shadowed journey, if you have ever loved Julie Christie, leave a like for this video, as a tribute to a legend who chose freedom over the dazzling lights. Julie Christie was born on April 14, 1940, at the Shinglung Tea Estate, a colonial tea plantation in Assam, India. Her father, Frank St. John Christie, was a British superintendent overseeing hundreds of local workers. Her mother, Rosemary Ramdin, was a Welsh painter with a free-spirited soul. From the moment she was born, Julie Christie lived between two opposing worlds, the strictness of colonial authority and the artistic freedom embodied by her mother. But within that household lay a secret. Julie Christie had a half-sister, Jun Christie, born from her father's relationship with an Indian laborer. In the deeply prejudiced colonial society of the time, her sister's existence was considered a disgrace and hidden away. Growing up under the shadow of a carefully concealed truth gave Julie Christie an early sense that life was full of contradictions too difficult to name. Perhaps that was why she learned to see the world with skeptical, cautious eyes, never giving her trust easily to anyone. At the age of 6, Julie Christie was separated from her parents and sent to England for schooling. From the sun-drenched childhood days scented with tea in Assam, she was thrust into a starkly different environment, a cold Catholic convent school in the English countryside. She lived with a foster family, grew accustomed to church bells, dark corridors, and strict surveillance. Julie Christie was once expelled for telling dirty jokes to her classmates. A small incident, but one that revealed her instinctive rebellion against rules, a trait that would follow her all her life. She later admitted that this period left her with a deep sense of abandonment. That feeling became a haunting shadow, making her wary of marriage, unwilling to have children, and prone to walking away from fame even at the height of her career, as if she were always afraid of being confined once more. As a teenager, Julie Christie was sent to Paris to continue her studies and refine her French. Paris opened another world: small galleries, artist cafes, endless conversations about philosophy. One day, at only 9 years old, Julie Christie sneaked out of her boarding school and spent an entire day wandering with an unknown young actor. He told her about his dream of living many lives through acting. Julie Christie said that it was on that very day she knew she wanted to become an actress. Not to be famous, but to be free, to live different destinies, escaping a reality that had always felt too tightly controlled. Upon returning to England, Julie Christie resolved to pursue the arts. She enrolled at the Central School of Speech and Drama in London, one of the most prestigious institutions for performance. She was not the top student, but she stood out for her natural, modern, and independent style of acting. Julie Christie did not perform to please her teachers. She performed to feel alive, to reclaim her truest self. And from there, an extraordinary star began to take shape. After graduating from the Central School of Speech and Drama in London, Julie Christie began her artistic journey quietly, experimenting with stage and television. From the start, she was different. While many British actors still clung to theatrical exaggeration, Julie Christie chose subtlety and naturalism, allowing audiences to see the human being rather than just the role. In 1961, she landed her first television role in the BBC science fiction series A for Andromeda. Playing a woman created by a computer, cold and mysterious, Julie Christie stood out so strongly that many advised the BBC to keep her long-term. But when the sequel was produced, her role was given to another actress. The BBC had missed its chance to secure her with a contract, a decision that seemed minor at the time, yet became a turning point. For being let go pushed Julie Christie toward the silver screen, where she would no longer be just a television actress, but the face of an entire new wave of cinema. Julie Christie made her big-screen debut in Crooks Anonymous and The Fast Lady, 1962. They were merely light comedies, not critically acclaimed, but they introduced her to the language of film. She observed every detail, how the camera captured light, how the smallest expression could be magnified on screen. This quiet observation shaped her uniqueness. She did not act to be seen. She acted so the audience could believe. The true breakthrough came in 1963, when Julie Christie was chosen to replace actress Topsy Jane in Billy Liar. This was not only the role that put her in the spotlight, but also placed her at the center of a movement, kitchen sink realism, a social cinema that reflected the struggles of the working class, the suffocation of industrial towns, and the yearning to break free. As Liz, the modern, free-spirited young woman ready to leave her dreary hometown in search of a different future, Julie Christie did more than perform a character. She became the embodiment of a generation of British youth eager to shatter boundaries. The image of Liz in a short skirt, walking down the street with her head held high, passing every gaze without looking back, became an iconic snapshot of 1960s British cinema. Director John Schlesinger admitted, "Julie wasn't acting Liz. Julie was Liz." Thanks to Billy Liar, Julie Christie instantly emerged as a striking new face, not just a promising star, but a cultural icon. From a last-minute replacement, she became the very embodiment of freedom and of the kitchen sink realism movement itself. 1965 entered cinema history as the year of Julie Christie. In just 1 year, Julie Christie transformed from a rising face of British film into a global legend thanks to two contrasting yet equally iconic roles, Diana Scott in Darling and Lara Antipova in Doctor Zhivago. In Darling, Julie Christie became Diana, a glamorous, ambitious, and deeply conflicted model. The film exposed the emptiness behind the glittering facade of 1960s London, a world where desire and ambition intertwined. With her cold gaze, monotone voice, and elusive presence, Julie Christie turned Diana into the emblem of the swinging 60s, a generation of women bold enough to rebel, to live by instinct, yet lost in freedom. The role won her the Academy Award for Best Actress, establishing her as the defining face of a new cultural wave. That same year, Julie Christie appeared in David Lean's Doctor Zhivago, one of Hollywood's greatest epics. As Lara, she embodied a Russian woman, both fragile and resilient, swept into the whirlpool of war and love. The pairing of Julie Christie and Omar Sharif created a screen romance so intense that several scenes had to be cut for being too sensual by the standards of the time. The film won 5 Academy Awards, became a global phenomenon and lifted Julie Christie beyond Britain to international stardom. In a single year, Julie Christie became the face of two opposing cinematic worlds: Darling, the essence of European counter-cinema, and Doctor Zhivago, the grandeur of Hollywood epic. This contrast gave her a rare magnetism. Julie Christie was simultaneously the icon of rebellious youth culture and the romantic heroine of timeless love stories. Her influence extended beyond the screen. When she stepped onto the Oscar stage in 1966 to accept her golden statue, Julie Christie wore shimmering trousers she had designed and sewn herself. She became the first woman to wear pants while receiving an Oscar, a small act that shattered Hollywood's rigid fashion codes. From headscarves to turtlenecks to her unorthodox style, Julie Christie inspired an entire generation of young women. Time magazine once wrote, "What Julie Christie wears has more impact on fashion than the 10 best-dressed women combined." After that peak, instead of embracing a flood of blockbuster scripts, Julie Christie continued to choose unpredictable and challenging roles. In 1966, she starred in François Truffaut's Fahrenheit 451, where she simultaneously played Linda, the paralyzed wife trapped in conformity, and Clarice, the young woman daring to resist. A year later, she took on the role of Bathsheba Everdeen in Far From the Madding Crowd, 1967, a strong and independent woman pursued by three men, a portrayal that foreshadowed the wave of feminism in cinema. In 1968, Petulia introduced Julie Christie to American audiences through a complex performance reflecting the anxieties and fractures of a war-torn society. In the early 1970s, Julie Christie cemented her position with Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller, 1971, where she played a shrewd and intelligent brothel madam, a role that earned her a second Academy Award nomination. 2 years later, Don't Look Now, 1973, marked another high point. A psychological horror film with a love scene so realistic, it was long suspected to be genuine, now hailed as a classic, praised by critics for decades. Julie Christie's choices always set her apart, ensuring reinvention at every step. She did not seek commercial roles but pursued complex characters that reflected the inner conflicts of modern women. And it was precisely this that made Julie Christie an icon not only of cinema, but of social and cultural change itself. If the 1960s-1970s turned Julie Christie into a cinematic icon, it was the years off stage that revealed the real person. Away from film sets, Julie Christie did not live the life of a star. She lived as a woman perpetually skeptical of happiness, cautious about love, and repeatedly detaching herself from the ties society expected of women. It is here, within long-lasting relationships, in the refusals to marry and the choice never to have children, that one can clearly see the deep fear that has followed Julie Christie since childhood. The fear of being confined, the fear of losing freedom, and the fear of repeating the losses she once endured. Julie Christie entered her 20s with eyes equal parts yearning and wary. She met Terrence Stamp in the early 1960s when both stood midway between obscurity and fame. Stamp was then hailed as Britain's most dangerously romantic young actor, with icy blue eyes and a face carved like marble. Julie Christie had just left small television roles, not yet a star, but already carrying an unmistakable independent air, a cool gaze, at once seductive and distant, as if she always kept an invisible distance from the world. What made Julie Christie stay with Terrence Stamp was not flattery, nor the halo of glory around him. It was a special kind of silence. Amid noisy crowds, the two could sit together for hours without feeling the need to fill the void with words. For Julie Christie, who had feared attachment all her life and remained wary of love, that silence was a rare signal that she might lower her defenses. Their love did not erupt like wildfire. It was gentle, profound, like two lonely souls who accidentally found each other. They talked about philosophy, European cinema, the meaninglessness of fame, and their doubts about a changing society. Terrence Stamp later admitted, Julie didn't need anyone to make her stand out. She would simply enter a room and everything fell silent. Julie Christie, always suspicious of happiness, found herself for the first time believing someone could understand the fragility beneath her cool exterior. For Julie Christie, love with Terrence Stamp was a beautiful experiment, a way to test whether freedom could coexist with commitment. She never found a complete answer, but that relationship gave her another kind of life, warm, safe, and intellectual. When their careers gradually pulled them apart, he to Hollywood, she into roles that changed British cinema, they did not stage a dramatic breakup. No betrayal, no explosive split, just two parallel paths that diverged. Years later, when asked, Terrence Stamp still said, "I have never met anyone like Julie. No one confused me as much as she did, and no one has ever made me fall silent so often in conversation." As for Julie Christie, true to form, she said little. She simply acknowledged tersely, "He understood me more than I thought." After Terrence Stamp, the next man to enter Julie Christie's life was not an actor, nor anyone from the world of cinema. He was Don Bessant, a little-known painter, quiet and far removed from the noise of show business. They met around 1962, when Julie Christie was just taking her first steps in her career, long before Doctor Zhivago or Darling. At a time when Hollywood was still a distant dream, Don Bessant gave Julie Christie what she always longed for, an ordinary life, without stages, without red carpets. Julie Christie and Don Bessant soon moved in together in a small London flat. Those were not days of lavish parties, but a period when Julie Christie could come home, shed the image of a rising actress, and simply be a woman in an old sweater reading by the window. Don Bessant loved her precisely for that simplicity, without needing her to play any role. For someone who had carried the wound of abandonment since childhood, Julie Christie found in Don Bessant a rare comfort, a feeling that resembled having a real family. In 1965, they became engaged. That same year, Julie Christie exploded onto the world stage with Billy Liar, Darling, and Doctor Zhivago. When Julie Christie received her Oscar in Hollywood, Don Bessant remained outside the spotlight, waiting for her in London. He never claimed credit, never demanded recognition, never tried to appear as the man behind the star. He simply stood quietly as her support. Yet as Hollywood's lights grew brighter, the distance between them also widened. Julie Christie was constantly away on set, facing the pull of fame and relentless attention from some of the world's most celebrated figures. Don Bessant still wanted the quiet life of a visual artist. He painted, she acted, but they were no longer looking in the same direction. The calm love that had once bound them could not withstand the whirlwind that was lifting Julie Christie into legend. In 1967, they separated in silence. No scandal, no bitterness, just two people choosing different rhythms of life. Julie Christie once said that of all her relationships, Don Bessant was the closest to being a husband, because he allowed her to be herself and never tried to control her. But for that very reason, when her path demanded she go further, he did not hold her back. If her love with Terrence Stamp gave Julie Christie intellectual kinship, then Don Bessant gave her a brief period of peace, a warm refuge before she was swept into the whirlpool of Hollywood. And when the memory of him closed, it left no regret, but rather a gentle stillness, a rare, quiet pause in Julie Christie's life of contradictions. If Terrence Stamp was the quiet kindred spirit, and Don Bessant the peaceful refuge, then Warren Beatty appeared like a storm, bringing both light and chaos. Julie Christie met Warren Beatty in 1966 at the royal premiere of Born Free in London. By then, Warren Beatty was already one of Hollywood's most powerful leading men, fresh off the thunderous success of Bonnie and Clyde. He attended with his girlfriend Leslie Caron, yet his gaze was drawn irresistibly to another woman, Julie Christie. Without glamorous gowns or attempts to charm, she stood out through sheer naturalness and a silent pride. For Warren Beatty, that moment was like lightning, not because of showy beauty, but because of the extraordinary aura radiating from simplicity. But at that time, neither of them was free. Julie Christie was still with Don Bessant, the quiet, gentle partner who had stood by her for years. Warren Beatty, though deeply captivated, was still with Leslie Caron, and so Julie Christie kept her distance. Their first arranged meeting, set up by friends at Warren's request, contained no romance at all. Julie Christie was blunt, even aloof, Warren Beatty overly direct. Between them was caution, a boundary neither could yet cross. It was not until months later, when Julie Christie ended her relationship with Don Bessant and Warren Beatty closed his chapter with Leslie Caron, that they could look at each other differently. Freed from the weight of the past, Julie Christie began to see that beneath Hollywood's dazzling glow, Warren Beatty was a restless soul, ambitious, uneasy, always searching for something beyond fame. And Warren Beatty, in turn, was conquered by Julie Christie's intelligence, independence, and understated beauty. From endless conversations, from curiosity that turned into connection, their love truly began. When they finally came together, Julie Christie and Warren Beatty entered a romance that was both passionate and liberating, filled with moments that seemed unbreakable. She accompanied him to premieres, red carpets, and political campaigns. They starred together in 3 films, but their relationship was never confined to movie sets. It was a period when 2 artistic souls found companionship in each other, united in their belief in the power of cinema, in their desire to change the world, and in the simple happiness of sharing private hours together. It was during this period that Julie Christie came under Warren Beatty's influence in her career choices. Instead of chasing Hollywood fame, she began prioritizing artistic, challenging roles. That influence led Julie Christie to turn down many potential blockbusters. Yet their closeness eventually reached a limit neither could reconcile. Warren Beatty loved Julie Christie so deeply that he called her his wife among friends and proposed to her multiple times. But Julie Christie, though profoundly attached, carried within her a deep fear of marriage and commitment, an anxiety rooted in her childhood when she was sent away from her parents. For her, love only held meaning when 2 people chose to stay together without the need for a marriage certificate. For Warren Beatty, however, not marrying meant granting himself permission to love others as well. Julie Christie loved Warren Beatty with all her heart, but that love was tested to the point of almost breaking her. Each time she heard that Warren Beatty had been with another woman, she felt torn apart. On one side, the heart that longed to hold on to him. On the other, the pride that refused to accept being pushed aside. She stayed silent. She forgave, but that forgiveness was like a wound constantly reopened. Night after night, Julie Christie faced herself, loving too much to let go, yet wounded too deeply to find peace. "I love you, but I cannot bear the feeling of being shared," she once said. It was not just a confession, but the strangled cry of a woman caught between desire and despair. In the end, when love could no longer be saved, Julie Christie chose to walk away. No fights, no blame, for she had cried enough, suffered enough. That silence became the full stop to 7 years of passionate love, but also the only way she could preserve a measure of dignity. Warren Beatty still loved her, enough to write the screenplay for Reds, 1981, with the female lead crafted for Julie Christie. But she declined, not because the love had vanished, but because she understood that some chapters must be left closed. The role later went to Diane Keaton, who received an Oscar nomination. And in the film's ending, Warren Beatty left the dedication, "For Jules." Just 2 words, but carrying the weight of obsession, a sign that even broken love remained intact in their memories. The love story of Julie Christie and Warren Beatty did not end in marriage, nor in bitterness. It stopped midway, like an unfinished ballad. leaving behind echoes both sweet and sorrowful. For Julie Christie, it was the relationship that illuminated part of her life, but also etched in her the haunting truth that love, no matter how beautiful, can slip away at any moment. After Warren Beatty, Julie Christie opened her heart a few more times, but they were no longer fierce storms or long ballads stretching over years, rather brief stopovers on a long journey. Each man who passed through her life left a mark, yet none could keep her for long. At one point, Julie Christie lived with Brian Eno, the musician and producer, in a small house in the English countryside. They shared a love of art and silence with no need to please anyone, no need to step into the public eye. But that relationship, like many others, faded gently, without bitterness, without clinging. There was Jim McBride, the exuberant American director, too fast, too talkative for a Julie Christie accustomed to quiet. It lasted only a short time before they realized they were out of sync. With Terry O'Neill, the photographer who captured her famous portraits, the affection began with work, but ended quickly, as he could not grasp the silence she needed. Lou Adler, Hollywood's charming producer, also entered her life briefly, but she stepped back again, retreating to England to preserve her distance. Notably, Julie Christie later expressed regret for taking part in Shampoo because of its message about women, which she felt did not resonate with her, showing that she was always clear-headed, never easily swept into Hollywood's machinery. Looking back, these relationships were not failures, but experiences that helped Julie Christie understand more deeply what she truly needed. She did not seek a title, nor wait for a man to define her life. After Beatty, she still loved, but with clarity, with a distance that ensured she would not lose herself. What set Julie Christie apart was not only her screen roles, but also her private choices. She never longed to be a wife, nor dreamed of having children. "I never felt I was meant to be a mother," she once said. For Julie Christie, a woman's calling was not bound to social expectations, but to whether she dared to be honest with herself. She chose not to become a mother, not out of selfishness, but because she would not give what she did not believe in. That choice made Julie Christie a quiet yet powerful voice for feminism in an era still riddled with prejudice. She did not stand on podiums to proclaim, but the way she lived, steadfast, independent, refusing to follow the script written for women, was proof enough. After years of avoiding commitment, Julie Christie seemed destined never to marry. Love in her life had often resembled short train rides, arriving, departing, leaving echoes but never holding her back. That is why her decision to commit her life to Duncan Campbell marked such a difficult turning point, perhaps even harder than walking away from Hollywood's spotlight. Duncan Campbell was not an actor, nor did he carry the glamorous aura of the film world. He was a Scottish investigative journalist, more accustomed to quietly observing than performing. In him, Julie Christie found the steadiness and patience she had never known in anyone else. No noise, no imposition. He stood quietly by her side, accepting the long silences and the times when she withdrew. Through the unspoken tests she unconsciously set, the silences, the distance, the refusals, Duncan remained. Trust did not come easily to Julie Christie. After loves filled with passion but also deep wounds, she had learned to be wary even of happiness itself. She feared that marriage would steal her freedom, that one day love might again become a chain. But Duncan Campbell asked for nothing more than her presence. He let her be herself, never seeking to change her, never demanding she give anything up. That understanding, so simple it seemed obvious, gradually loosened the defenses she had carried for so many years. When they decided to marry in 2007, Julie Christie was already in her 60s. There was no lavish wedding, no press frenzy, only a small, private ceremony. Yet for her, that moment carried more weight than any award or glory she had ever received. It was not belated, but the result of a lifelong struggle with herself, learning to trust, learning to stay, learning to let love exist without meaning loss. In Duncan Campbell, Julie Christie found not only a life partner, but someone who proved to her that marriage, when built on respect and freedom, could also be a place of peace. Looking back, Julie Christie's love life had no loud scandals, no painful divorces, no surface-level tragedies. Her tragedy was far quieter, a heart that always longed for love, yet always feared happiness. Each time she turned her back on marriage, each time she refused motherhood, she cut away another chance at living a normal life like others. That very choice made Julie Christie an emblem of independence, strength, and modernity, but also one of the loneliest stars of her generation. Julie Christie left her mark not only through the celebrated roles of the 1960s and 1970s, but also through a presence that made her a rare archetype of modern cinema. From Lara in Doctor Zhivago to Diana in Darling, and later Fiona in Away From Her, every character she embodied carried an outer fragility, hiding fierce inner strength. She acted not only with dialogue, but with her eyes, with silences, with the stillness between words, something very few actors could achieve. Her influence extended far beyond performance. Even at the height of her career, when Hollywood's doors were wide open, she chose to turn her back on fame to live simply, to take part in social causes and environmental activism. This deliberate retreat made her a countercultural icon, a star who refused to be defined by the spotlight, who was not bound to red carpets, and who dared to place personal freedom above career. For the generations of actresses who followed, Julie Christie became proof that a woman could shine on screen while remaining resolute in private life. Cate Blanchett admitted she learned from Christie how to build a character more with silence than with words. Sarah Polley, director of Away From Her, remarked, "No one could portray a woman slowly losing her memory, both fragile and proud, the way Julie could." That very film, marking Christie's return after years of absence, earned her yet another Oscar nomination, for a performance both deeply human and haunting. Thus, Julie Christie's legacy is not measured in awards or box office numbers, but in a different standard: the courage to live and create on her own terms. She inspired a generation of women artists to resist conformity, to seek happiness outside the mold of dutiful wife and mother. Today, when Julie Christie's name is spoken, people recall not only a film star, but a woman who lived fully as herself, beautiful, talented, independent, and quietly burdened with loneliness. And perhaps it is precisely that tension which made her one of the immortal faces of the 20th century, both a cinematic icon and a symbol of freedom, difference, and unyielding spirit. In her 70s, Julie Christie has all but vanished from the spotlight. She lives quietly in a small house in the Welsh countryside with her partner Duncan Campbell. No paparazzi, no noisy events, no barrage of interviews as in her youth. She has chosen a slower rhythm, tending the garden, reading, occasionally joining talks on environmental or animal rights issues, causes she has been devoted to for decades. Julie Christie no longer appears on screen often, but whenever she agrees to return, it is always in carefully chosen roles, valued more for their humanity than for commercial appeal. She once shared, "I don't need to make many films anymore. I just want to spend time on what truly feels meaningful to me." This selectiveness has kept her name respected, never fading from public memory. In her private life, she remains faithful to the choices that once sparked controversy. No children, no pursuit of traditional family molds. For Julie Christie, old age is not loss, but an opportunity to finally live at her own pace, after experiencing both glory and solitude. Friends say she still retains her old charm. The bright eyes, the proud smile, the measured way of speaking, as if weighing every word. Some may say Julie Christie left Hollywood, but the truth is, she never fully belonged there. From youth, she always stood at the margins, participating yet keeping her distance, shining yet rejecting the binds of fame. And today, in old age, that choice is clearer than ever. Julie Christie lives as an ordinary woman, content in privacy, yet still an icon, not because of the films she made, but because of the way she has lived her entire life. Julie Christie is not only a movie star, but also living proof of a woman's freedom to choose. She once refused marriage when it meant confinement, refused motherhood when she knew it was not her path, and turned away from Hollywood when its spotlight grew too narrow. Her life, from unforgettable roles to love affairs both passionate and fragile, has been a continual search for balance between love and freedom, between fame and quietude. If one had to name the legacy Julie Christie leaves behind, it is not just Doctor Zhivago or Darling, nor merely the Oscars or BAFTAs. Her true legacy is the image of a woman who dared to walk her own way, who accepted both joy and solitude to preserve her sense of self. And for that reason, Julie Christie remains a rare icon, never confined to any single era, never forgotten with time, but always present as a source of inspiration for those seeking the courage to live authentically. The glow of fame may fade, trophies may gather dust, but the choice to live truthfully, to be honest with oneself, remains the most enduring legacy. And what about you? Have you ever faced a crossroads where your choice defied others' expectations? Have you ever dared to let go of what seemed inevitable just to protect your freedom? If Julie Christie's journey makes you reflect on your own, share it. Perhaps your story will remind someone else that happiness has no fixed mold, and that the courage to live truthfully is the greatest gift we can give ourselves.